To you 3 heroes who hold my scroll, if destroying evil be thy goal, reach within my gilded page, and draw forth a boon from a bygone age. One by one they reached into the page, its surface rippling like liquid gold. Arekk went first, craving power, and pulled out a war mage's wand. Doug, wanting to protect, struggled to extract a suit of dwarven armour. Coraline, hoping for a friend, drew forth a small purple-blue jellyfish with googly eyes and a smiling face. It zipped around her, trilling before nuzzling her cheek. Coraline placed her captain's hat on its head and named it Reef. Reef approved. The scroll began to shimmer. This is but a taste of what I can bestow, if on a quest you are willing to go. Head to the mountains far to the south. Look for a cave with a golden mouth. It is here that I, Aurelion, do dwell, with all of my power and riches as well. The scroll transformed into a map, showing a path from Seedgreen to the southern mountains. Midge declared there was one last trial before their night was over. The trial of constitution. At this, he grabbed his drink and downed it in one. Putting their bar voucher to good use, the group joined in, even coaxing Lem, Midge's terrifying partner, out of her dark corner. So stealthy the group hadn't noticed her. Between rounds, Midge explained that Reef was a flumph, friendly creatures known for forming strong bonds. Reef immediately hugged Coraline's face to prove this point. Midge added that he'd had the scroll for a long time, that Aurelion was an old friend, and that he now wondered whether fate or chance had seen it pass to them. Lem, deep in her cups, asked where their tall, dark, mysterious friend was, causing Midge to frown. The group assumed Xandros was off brooding somewhere. A few hours earlier, deep within a moonlit forest, a lone figure in a tattered black cloak drifted silently between the trees. He paused beside a shallow puddle. In its surface, he saw the reflection of his pale mask, and a footprint. The trail brought him to an abandoned farmhouse, barely upright, its timbers warped by rot and root. Before Xandros could advance, a woman's scream tore through the night. Charging forward, he unleashed a blast of eldritch energy, blowing the door from its hinges. He drew his sickles, their silver edges glinting. Silent and still, the interior reeked of death. Corpses littered the floor, mauled and partially eaten. This was a trap. It lunged from the shadows, hurling Xandros outside. As he rose, a claw gripped the doorframe, and a horrific fusion of man and canine stepped out, a lycanthrope. Its maw curled into a mocking smile as its eyes flashed with malice. It lunged, but Xandros's blade flashed quicker. One clean strike, and the beast's severed head struck the ground. The forest fell silent once more. A few hours later, having sat outside the horny strumpet long after closing, Arekk, Coraline, and Doug drunkenly stumbled back toward the inn. On the way, they crossed paths with Xandros, who had just collected his bounty from the Seed Almshouse. Reunited, they shared their night's events and spoke of the quest. Each had been planning to leave town sooner or later. Coraline and Doug had their missing siblings to find, and Arekk had his missing memories to uncover. Tomorrow they would leave Seedgreen together, hoping to find what they sought along the way. The next morning, the group headed into town, visiting Al's deals for supplies, and briefly getting sidetracked by the sheer amount of random items in the store's middle aisle. Next, they purchased a pair of draft horses and a cart from the stables, using part of their quiz winnings. Coraline also wrote a quick letter to her parents, telling them she was leaving town to search for her sister. Stocked up and family informed, the group loaded into the cart. Arekk begrudgingly took the reins, Xandros rode shotgun, and Doug and Coraline scrambled into the back. With a snap of the reins, the horses started off, and their journey began. They trundled through well-tended farmlands, which gave way to ancient woods as they crossed into the central forest. Before long, they came to a fork in the road. In the middle stood the bottom half of a signpost. The more essential top half was nowhere to be seen. Xandros searched the undergrowth, Coraline sent Reef above the trees to scout, and Arekk checked the map. Unfortunately, Xandros found nothing. Coraline couldn't decipher Reef's charade-style report, and the scroll's simple map had no roads at all. Doug, frustrated, said they should just go left. So left they went. The terrain grew steeper as their path wound between the Birchhead Mountains, then along the edge of a steep cliff. Far below, a wide river flowed. Ahead, they spied a bridge with a toll house, and as they got closer, they saw it was manned. 6 guards waited, 2 above, 4 on the ground. Their leader stepped forward, one hand raised, ordering them to stop. Arekk complied. 2 guards flanked the cart and placed blocks beneath the wheels. The leader declared their goods forfeit in the name of the dukes. Doug loudly refused. The leader replied, "You can do this the easy way or the hard way." It was then that Coraline noticed how shifty the guards were, and that none of their armour fit properly. As Doug continued arguing, the others concluded the guards were impostors. Arekk stood abruptly. Doug and the leader fell silent. The flanking guards reached for their swords. A bolt of flame shot from Arekk's wand. The leader dodged and shouted, "The hard way it is, boys!" The archers fired as Doug leapt forward, arrows pinging off his armour as he slashed at the leader with Wendy. The horses panicked, trying to pull the cart forward. Xandros drew his sickles and charged, parrying arrows as he ran. Coraline and Arekk hunkered down behind the cart, firing spells at the archers above, with Coraline yelling at Arekk for being an idiot between castings. Arrows thudded into the cart. The leader struck viciously at Doug with his heavy mace, but it didn't even dent his new armour. Arekk nearly fell to a volley of arrows but rallied, setting one of the guards ablaze. The screaming archer toppled from the walkway, disappearing into the chasm below. The other archer, distracted by his ally's fall, failed to dodge as an ice knife slammed into the side of his head, exploding his skull moments later. Xandros struck, a blur of black cloak and silver sickles, and eviscerated the 2 flanking guards. He rose, slowly turning, and pointed his bloody sickle toward the last guard on the ground. The guard, overcome with terror, ran into the toll house. The leader looked back, yelling and calling him a coward. He had chosen the wrong moment to turn. Doug bellowed as his axe came down in a powerful arc. The leader could do nothing as the axe sliced through the top of his helmet, splitting his head and half his torso in 2. It seemed the hard way had gone in the group's favour. Besides a few stray arrows and cuts, the group were all right. Miraculously, not a single arrow had hit the horses. As they discussed what to do about the last guard, they heard the clang of a sword being thrown. The last guard stepped out, arms raised. Arekk moved to kill him, but the group stopped him. The man admitted they had killed the real guards and stolen their armour to rob travellers. Up close, they saw he was little more than a boy, his armour far too big for him. He told them the stolen goods and the guards' bodies were under the bridge. The group formed a quick huddle, and after denying Arekk's second suggestion of murder, decided on a plan. Doug turned to him and said they weren't going to kill him, but they were going to knock him out. There was only the briefest look of panic on the bandit's face before Doug struck him unconscious. They tied him to a nearby tree, and Coraline wrote and pinned a note to him, reading "Bandit." Either a patrol would come along and arrest him, or he'd escape and hopefully change his ways. The group gathered the loot and moved the bodies from under the bridge. Coraline insisted they bury the guards. Doug, never missing an opportunity to dig, got to work. Xandros and Arekk threw the bandits into the chasm, and Coraline placed a sign on the guard's grave. After a brief rest, and a second strike to ensure the bandits stayed unconscious, the group loaded their loot into the cart and crossed the bridge. The rest of the day's ride through the forest was uneventful. They stopped for the night, pulling into a small clearing off the road. Coraline tended to the horses while the others built a fire. After gorging themselves on the bandits' food, they allocated watches and went to bed. Their watches were uneventful until Coraline's. As she sat stroking a sleepy Reef, she heard a rustle. Just outside the firelight, she made out two reflective eyes staring at her from the bushes. Coraline cast a spell and spoke, telling the creature not to be afraid. The eyes flickered with understanding, and creeping out came a baby bear. It spoke, saying it smelled the food. Coraline offered it some leftovers. Tentatively, it approached and took the food from her hand. Coraline asked where its mother was. The baby looked up and past her. Coraline slowly turned to see an enormous bear stepping into the clearing, and she did not seem pleased. Coraline told her she meant no harm, offering her food as well. If the mother was calmed by the fact that Coraline spoke bear, she didn't show it. After a tense moment, the mother spoke. She said Coraline had a good smell, but the others, looking at the rest of the group, had bad smells. Blood smell, fire smell, death smell. Coraline insisted they might smell bad, but they were good people. Though clearly unconvinced, the mother settled, calling her child to her as she began to leave. The baby bear took one last, longing look at the cooking pot before wishing Coraline farewell. The mother told Coraline to make sure the fire was dead before they left. Coraline promised, watching them stalk off into the night. She let out a long sigh. That was a close one. "You can say that again," said one of the horses. Morning came, and Coraline told the group about the bears as they packed up, conjuring water to ensure the fire was well and truly out. Not long into their day's journey, they reached the end of the Birchhead Mountains. High up on a bluff, Coraline spotted the two bears watching her. She waved, and after a moment, they returned to their cave. The group rode on for the rest of the day, finally exiting the central forest. The overgrown trail gave way to cobbled roads, and as the sun began to set, they spied a town surrounded by strong walls. A sign outside the town read, "Spelton," though someone had crossed out the S and P and replaced them with an H. At the gate, they told the guards about the bandits and the supplies. One guard left briefly and returned with a slip of paper. He thanked them for their good deed, saying that if they brought the supplies to the blacksmith in town, the slip would serve as a line of credit. He also said they would send a patrol to the bridge in the morning. The group thanked them and entered town. They briefly discussed whether they'd get more by keeping the supplies, but ultimately decided to hand them over. At Sweep and Slice, they met a fiery-haired dwarf named Dirk Gripecaller, who happily accepted the supplies for credit. Coraline asked for a trident and armour lining in her pirate hat to protect Reef. Xandros requested his sickles be recoated in silver. Doug wanted a dwarven shield and throwing axes. Arekk, who considered weapons and armour barbaric, asked for health potions. Dirk said all of that was doable on the town's dime and told them to return tomorrow to collect. They said goodbye, with Doug and Dirk exchanging farewells in Dwarvish. As night settled, they found an inn called the Tarask. They parked their cart and stepped inside, weary from the road, ready for a night of rest.